speaking about one's world while showing a picture. My bedside table this winter. Here is a picture of my bedside table this winter. As you can see, I have a lot going on, and there is no dust. I'm allergic to dust, that's why. It makes me sneeze and I get a rash. About all of those books, I have to say I don't always manage to read them all. Sometimes I have to put them back on the bookshelf to wait for a better moment. Before telling you about the books, I also wanted to mention I don't quite manage the essays. I'm a very slow reader when it comes to essays, especially because they make me think so much. It's like I get this flow of words after reading a paragraph. So essays can be sitting on my night table for ages, like poems, but for a completely different reason, because I reread a poem when I'm in that particular mood. So, allow me to start with a yellow book. It stands out nicely, doesn't it? It is really interesting. It's The Curious Feminist by Cynthia Enloe. She is one of the few who has written about militaries from a feminist point of view. I usually read an essay of hers every now and then, mostly when I want to think or write about feminist anti-militarism. Just in front of it, under the amazing book with Leonard Peltier's Prison Writings, which I read when I feel strong enough to bear sadness and rage, in spite of the fact that you can also find beautiful insight in it. There's a collection of essays by Bell Hooks, Killing Rage, Ending Racism. I read an article every now and then too, when I'm thinking about the world in terms of sexism and racism and the big question of how we can all live together. I'm concerned about Roma people in Spain, you see. They call themselves gypsies, gitanas, gitanos. White racism against gypsies here is so deeply rooted, it's frightening. Under this book by Bell Hooks, you might not believe it. It's Conan Doyle's stories on Sherlock Holmes, which is an excellent read for the winter. And the very thick one under this open book has many more. I'm saving the next lot for next winter. I read Sherlock for entertainment and frown whenever I find a sexist comment, but that does not happen that often really. Last, the book under Peltier's and right next to the wall is Angela Davis's Essays on Prisons, which is a must-read. Wait, perhaps it's her collection of essays on freedom. I can't remember just now. Anyway, that woman is so intelligent. Read anything she writes, or listen to her on the internet. She's a great example of empathic rationality. Going back to the books against the wall, the first one on your right is a collection of fictionalized biographies of women. Antología Mujeres en la Historia 1800 a 1940, where an acquaintance of mine has one of her stories. I'm not in the mood for this read these days, because if something was true, I don't want it fictionalized just now. But I keep it there in case the moment comes, because I know it will come. The book beside this one is The Oxtails Earth. It's a collection of short stories. The money from selling this book goes to the British charity Oxfam. I keep this book in mind in case I include it in one of my courses one year. That would be for advanced students, of course. The blue book that you can see next is a most surprising novel, The Summer Book by Tove Jansson. A teacher, Manuel, gave it to me as a farewell present before I left my previous residence. I recommend this novel to people who love literature and solitude. It's a story about a grandmother and her granddaughter on an island in the north, and it is full of poetry. The very thick book next to this one was given to me by two adorable students, Sylvia and Laura, as a farewell present too. It's Henning Mankell's Daisy Sisters. It's the first novel I read by a man where women's frequent historical problem of marital rape for lifelong home imprisonment is mentioned. Of course, this kind of aggression is never named rape. You might read about it in this novel and not notice it as rape, but it is. We know how it works. This marital rape, often intended as a way to making the woman pregnant, is one of the weapons patriarchal societies have used to have women locked in houses and really busy, even if they did not want to have any more children. So this is why reading this novel is taking me ages, in spite of liking it. I need to be in high spirits. But I have actually grown fond of the main characters, so it's nice to see them again, so to speak. The very thin book is, guess, poems. Poems by one of my favorite poetry writers, Blanca Andreu. It's her first book of poems. I've already read them, of course, but poetry is like that. You keep reading this or that poem every now and then when you are in the mood for that particular poem. Next is the Interpretations of Dreams by Sigmund Freud, who I have a hard time reading because of his misogyny. Still, I make the most of his writing. I just read bits depending on what I am thinking about when I'm thinking of dreams. But my favorite is another. I won't tell you about it now. The thinner blue book is an autobiographical novel by Maya Angelou, I Know Why the Caged Bird Sings. I have started this book a few times because I read another volume of this autobio of hers, which I loved. I can't remember the title. It was something about the heart. But I haven't found my moment to read this one yet. About the thin white book coming next, Manifiesto Contrasexual by Beatriz Preciado, I have to say that I read bits of it when I'm thinking about writing about sex. The last two books you can see on your left include what I call my private portable university. Vendrán más años malos y nos harán más ciegos, by Rafael Sánchez Ferlosio. Well, the translation of this is something like, more horrible years are to come and we will be blinder. So it's not very optimistic, right? And an entertaining novel on an African woman detective in Botswana, written by a Scottish man called Alexander McCall Smith. It's the third of this series, I think. The other objects on my bedside table are a reading lamp, a glass bottle of water, and hair rubber bands. I won't tell you what you can find inside, though, just to give it some mystery. And to end up my presentation, I think it's fair to say I'm no systematic reader. I read out of passion. A passion for literature, a passion to learn about other people's worlds, and a passion for problem solving. And always depending on how I feel at a particular moment. That explains why I have so many different books at hand. And that's why I tend to read bits of them and not the whole book. I just manage to finish novels, and not always. So that's all. I hope you enjoyed my presentation, but mostly I hope this will encourage you to read some of these books. Have a nice day.